And I do give in most all the time.
You do.
I do.
I'll admit it. Yeah, you
Yeah.
do. I tend to have strong opinions about things.
Yes. And I give in because, like you said in the very beginning, I don't want to fight, and I just want to keep the peace. And I think in the end, she cares about whatever we're doing much more than I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I give in.
But you don't mind giving in, do you?
Of course she does. Jen, hello.
Hey, everybody, I'm Lori Schulweiss.
And I'm Jen Giamo.
And welcome to another episode of Everybody Talks, the podcast where we explore the wide world of wellness. Sometimes we talk to experts, sometimes we just talk to each other, but we're always talking to you.
Every week, we discuss topics from nutrition and exercise to mindfulness and self-care. And today, we are talking all about high-functioning codependency.
It's a deep dive, so let's get started.
She is a licensed psychotherapist, global relationship and empowerment expert, and author. With over 2 decades of experience, she's worked with a diverse clientele, including international pop stars, athletes, and Fortune 500 CEOs. She began her career as a talent agent, negotiating contracts for supermodels and celebrities like us.
Yeah.
But seeking more fulfillment, she transitioned into psychotherapy, earning a master's degree in clinical psychotherapy from NYU. She combines practical psychology with Eastern mindfulness practices to facilitate sustainable personal transformation.
She inspires millions of people through her blog, social media channels, signature course, and her very popular podcast, The Terri Cole Show. Her work has been featured in various media outlets, and her new book, Too Much, A Guide to Breaking the Cycle of Codependency, is available now. We're going to talk all about it. Please welcome to Everybody Talks, Terri Cole. Terri, welcome to our podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, ladies.
Thank you for being here. So share a little bit more about yourself. We kind of gave a little brief bio of you, but tell our listeners a little bit more.
Okay. I've been a therapist for 27 years. And I actually was a talent agent before that, as you mentioned, for less than a decade. But still, I mean, that was like really my foray into like business life. And as I was becoming more and more successful in the world of entertainment, which I know you guys understand, it got less and less healthy. And I had gotten to therapy when I was about 19, and I quit drinking when I was 21. So I was really like, well, wide open. My eyes were wide open to like life and the world. And there was no numbing, which I had been doing for a long time before I quit drinking. And I literally just got too healthy to stay in entertainment. I was like, I could no longer deny that I didn't care about the Pantene deal or the movie contract.
That's
like I got to a point where all I cared about was who has an eating disorder and how can I help them? Who needs to get into recovery and how can I help them? Who needs Al-Anon? Who needs a therapist? Who needs whatever? And I actually got sucked back into the world because it's also a world that you can never fucking leave. It's like, you can try to leave. And they're like, Here's all the money in the world. You're like, maybe I'll stay for another 6 months. So I ended up getting sucked back into, I got asked to run the TV department at Ford down on Green Street in Soho. And I was like, okay, I'm getting married. I'm just going to do it. Even though I was already a therapist, but I had like 2 clients, right? Because it was like the beginning of and one was paying me $40 and I think the other was paying me $60. And I thought that was great. I was seeing people in my apartment. This was a long time ago. So I ended up sort of getting sucked back in. And because the money was so ridiculous and we were getting married and I just threw out a number thinking they were going to be like, yeah, okay. And they were like, okay. I was like, oh my God, now I have to do this. So I'm in it and have so outgrown it. I keep going. Katie Ford was running the Ford agency at that time. And I kept going into her office, knocking on the door and being like, hi, I heard that in the model's apartment that the people who are supposed to be actually taking care of them are doing cocaine. So I wonder and why is the 15-year-old dating the 40-year-old photographer dating when her parents who live in Michigan you know what I mean? And, she'd be like, Terri, it just kept going. And then I would knock on the door and be like, hi, can we stop calling the models girls? Because they're not. I mean, if anyone's over 18, can we? And she was like, finally, do you really want to be in this business anymore, Terri? I was like,
not really.
Maybe no. I think the answer to that is a resounding no, I don't.
Yeah.
So I tried changing that crazy business. And I didn't want that crazy business changing me. And so I left at what my father would think was an extremely inopportune time at the height of my career, the height of my success, making all the money in the world, doing a job. Because keep in mind, it was the 90s, right? So people, this was like supermodel central. And that's exactly where I was. And people were like, what? You're quitting your job to go to grad school? What the hell is wrong with you? And I remember saying to my dad, Dad, I'm actually just not happy. He was literally said verbatim, rest RIP. He was like, sounds weird. Those were his words. That's the backstory there. But at the same time, all this was happening, you guys, I had this parallel process of my own personal therapeutic journey. So my life was changing, and I could not believe that therapy could empower me to completely change my life. Like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is the best kept secret. Obviously, we know not everyone can afford therapy, and this was long before social media or anything where there was barely access. But it was so mind blowing to me. And I thought, why isn't everyone doing this?
Yeah.
Why isn't everyone, right? As you guys say, everybody talks. Everybody needs to talk, is the
Everybody
point.
needs to talk. Yeah, true.
Right. And so for me, I just got really excited about helping other people who feel like it's almost like, like people feel in life like, oh, I got dealt this hand,
Yes.
And therapeutically, I was like, oh my God, fuck this hand. I don't like this hand. I don't like this game. I'm literally changing the whole thing. I'm changing the whole thing. It doesn't matter what hand I was quote unquote dealt. I'm just deciding that I don't care. I'm going to do something different. And yes, it was scary. And yes, I was poor for a while again. I was like, because the money was never the thing, right? It was about, how do I feel? I was really searching for a feeling in all of my climbing the Hollywood ladder. I was like, when I get to that, when I represent that famous person, then I'm totally going to feel the way I want to feel. And then again, I got to the top of that hill and did not feel that way. And that was when I changed to become a psychotherapist.
Wow. That's quite a journey.
It really is. I mean, and quite a, 180 from what you were doing to what you're doing now. I mean, even, the hand you were dealt, even though the hand had a lot of money in it, you were like, don't want to do it. So, I mean, kudos to you for that and like listening to your intuition and what your passion really was, because that's hard. That's hard to like just walk away from that, but
it took time though. Like, so, you recap it in 3 minutes and you're like,
Right.
amazing. You just knew and you just did it. You're awesome.
Yeah.
No, I labored for 3 years, stayed 3 years longer than I should have to a degree. Here's the thing. As long as I don't quit, right, to me, you can't lose if you just keep effing going. Like, just keep trying, just keep getting better, just keep learning more. It's, I'd have clients who'd be like, and then that didn't happen. I was like, you waited 4 days. Like, what do you mean? You mean it didn't happen yet?
Yeah.
Let's give it some time,
Yeah.
And I think too, I always think like, well, this isn't permanent. I can always go back to if this doesn't work out or I don't like it or I find that it's not really what I want to do, go back to what you were doing or or try something else. I think that there's no timeline and there's no shame in, hey, it didn't work out the way I thought it would.
Yes. Agreed.
But yeah, that's quite a transition. And the motivation for you to make that shift was just something internal in you and seeing how this Hollywood life wasn't the life that you wanted to be around.
Yes, it was that the only thing I cared about, my obsession was mental health and evening the playing field, which is still 27 years later, it's still my obsession. Like, if you look at my YouTube channel, there's 650 free, amazing videos. I'm not saving the good stuff behind some money wall. You are in India. I have a whole group of women in Serbia. I have women all over the world who need boundaries, who are codependent, who need help, and who need an accessible way to make to get rid of the hand they were dealt, right? To change it out. And so that's, literally my purpose in life, my dharma feels like it is to help people, give people the tools so that they can lessen their own suffering and elevate their own joy. Live in a more liberated way,
Let's talk about the book a little
Well,
bit.
yeah, let's back up. And so the book is about high functioning codependency. And so first, should we look at what that actually means and what your definition of that is?
Yes. So, because like, why a book on codependency is really the question. So, in my therapy practice, I had all of these highly capable women. And the irony with high functioning codependency is that the more capable you are, the less codependency. It looks like codependency, but it's still codependency. So I would say to them, hey, this dynamic you're describing in this relationship, there's a codependent dynamic to this. And immediately they would reject the notion because they were being sort of unduly influenced by Melody Beatty, codependent no more. I must be enabling an
Oh, sure.
alcoholic.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
I'm
yeah.
weak and pathetic.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sitting at
yeah,
home
yeah.
crying. I'm waiting for my deading spouse to come back with, you know what I mean?
Right.
Which, and trust me, that's not what Melody Beatty is saying anymore either about it. But the problem for me was I couldn't help them with their problem if they couldn't identify themselves in the problem. They were like, no, it's actually my boss or it's actually my partner or whatever. I'm like, no, man, it's actually you. So we need to talk about that. And that's a good thing, right? Because it's empowering. So let's talk about my definition of codependency and then we'll go from there. So it is you being overly invested in the feeling states, the outcomes, circumstances, relationships, finances, careers, all the things of the people in your life to the detriment of your own internal peace. Now, we make that distinction because we're all friends, lovers, mothers, daughters, citizens. Obviously, we want our people to be happy, of course. When you're an HFC, a high functioning codependent, it's more than wanting them to be happy. We feel responsible for their happiness or their success. So we're stepping over that line of, I really want you to be happy. And this is what I think you need to do for you to be happy. So you want to talk a little bit about the behaviors?
Yeah, I
Sure,
do.
sure.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, start with just feeling compelled to fix other people's problems, right? You feel responsible, and I would feel responsible even when people didn't ask me. No one's even asking. And I'm like, I've got a great idea for you. They're like, um, right?
This is what you should do.
Yeah, I know exactly what you should
Unsolicited
do.
opinions. Unsolicited. I'm the queen of the
Yeah.
unsolicited
Yeah.
opinion. Unsolicited advice. Yeah.
We call it auto advice giving,
Oh,
right?
That's me.
Because
I
there's
like
no
that.
thought. We just do it. Let's see, other traits. Giving until it hurts, right? We're over giving. And a lot of times we're doing shit no one has asked us to do. We're always ready to jump into damage control mode. And if you're an HFC, don't worry, you guys. If you identify with the stuff that we're talking about in this episode,
Yeah.
I promise you, when you get into recovery, all of your amazing, capable superpowers only get better because now we don't have the negative stuff weighing us down. So don't worry, you're still going to be amazing in a crisis. I'm in recovery and I'm still the go-to person for lots of people because I do have good ideas. And so do you guys, right? And so do you guys who are listening. So there's another trait is hyper independence, where we just don't love it to ask people for stuff. We just don't love being vulnerable. We just don't. And why is that? I don't want to be a burden. Really, I don't want to owe you anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be rejected by it. What if I make myself vulnerable and ask for something and then you say no after all what I've done for you? Wow, that's not going to be great for me. If you're feeling sort of low grade frustrated, do you ever just walk around where you just have this low boiling frustration where you just can't, low key, and you just can't wait for someone to cut you off in traffic so you could just be like, oh, unbelievable.
I think I
right?
call
Like,
that Tuesday, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Because here's the thing. When we overfunction, overgive, do more than our share, eventually, I don't care, maybe not in your 20s, but sooner or later, you're going to feel exhausted, resentful, bitter, and kind of martyred, right? Where we're sort of like literally these ungrateful mother effers. Like, what is the deal with the people in my life? They're so entitled. And of course, I thought that in therapy. And I remember a therapist saying, are they entitled, or are you serving yourself up on a silver platter and you're just pissed that they're taking you up on all of your offers of help and fixing and blah, 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 and they're not doing it for you? And I'm like, yes, probably actually that.
And is there is there a difference between, you just mentioned martyr? I feel like there are people that genuinely want to give and they want to be helpful and then there are other people who want to do it for the accolades or for the, hey, I did this for this person. Look how great I am. What is what's the difference there?
Well, there's a couple of things, because the question you're asking, or the way that I hear it, is what is caring? What is codependency? And then I'm going to add, what is control?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
at its foundation, garden variety codependency, high functioning codependency. Because what are high functioning codependents? We just do all the stuff for all the people and make it look easy. That's it. That's what we're doing. And we have these high antennas, so we're dialed into our surroundings, which of course makes us very good in certain jobs, certain situations where if you've got that high antenna, we're good at certain things, but it's also bleeding bandwidth like crazy. So we start with one thing that people can do if they're listening right now. We can do it. That we can start with a resentment inventory. So this can act as a GPS to places where either you're overgiving, maybe boundaries are needed, maybe you need to set a limit, maybe you need to ask for what you need, assert your preferences in a situation. Because resentment, it's always informative. There's a reason. And usually it means something is undone. Like there needs to be, you need to do something. So if you think about someone, but you bring them to mind. Let's just say I was resentful of my sister. This is an old story, but it's a true one. When I was living in New York, she had the keys to my apartment. She would come in and take my clothes without asking. I would say to her, listen, I'll share clothes, because who doesn't want two closets? I do. But don't just take shit without telling me, because then I'm looking for something for like 3 days. I'm going on vacation. I don't see my wrap or whatever the thing is. And she would always say, yeah, but then she wouldn't do it. So now there's a resentment there. Well, what do I do with that? Well, I have to look after I identify the resentment. Then I go, okay, what is my 50% of this? I have not had another conversation with her. I have not told her how mad it really makes me. And I'm thinking about taking my keys back. Like, that's how pissed I am. Like, I'm really mad, which would be like, that would be like a big deal between sisters, if you took back your keys. So now you have to decide, what do I do? So now I go to Terri Cole's Boundary Boss book, and I write my boundary script of like a boundary request. Hey, I'd like to make a simple request. And I already made this request that you let me know if you want to borrow something, because if it happens again, Kath, I'm going to take your key back, because that's how I was so frustrated the last time I was looking for whatever. So you add a consequence sort of to the boundary, especially if it's a boundary that you've asserted before, they agree to it, and then they let it go. So that's what you guys are going to do with the resentment inventory. And first of all, you don't even have to take any action. At first, we're just gathering information, right? This process, you listening to this pod right now, is you raising your awareness about your own behavior. As HFCs, and women in particular, we are so trained to be other focused. We are so trained to be like, hey, are you good, Laura? Are you good, Jen? Is everybody good? Is everyone here good? Before we're even thinking about how we are, because in some respects, and this is just I don't know if it's just my non-clinical 2 cents, we just want peace.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We just want peace. We just want peace. We just want everything to be harmonious, everyone to be doing good. We don't want any of the kids to be struggling. But here's the thing. And when you're an HFC, you are working hard to make sure everyone is good, not realizing what is your side of the street, many your responsibility, and what is their responsibility. And so you're working overtime to sort of create that peace. But here's the thing. Nobody wants to be a project. Like, people don't love it when we are, because what is the foundation of any, this is what I was starting to say before, but then somehow longest way around the barn to get back to the point, which is,
I'm going to steal that phrase. I'm the queen of that as well, by the way.
you're like, anyway, back to what I was saying.
Yeah.
That the foundation of any kind of codependency is a covert or overt attempt or bid to control other people's outcomes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
So funny when you are talking about in my office, I'm just wanting peace. I think I'm the queen of that. truthfully. Like, I just really want everything easy, smooth and easy. I like round pegs and round holes. Like, I
Yep.
don't want to force anything in, and it's just like, I just really relate to that especially in our setting, wanting peace. I mean, I want peace in other areas as well.
I think that, generally, I think people don't like conflict,
No.
right? I mean, I don't like to be
You
confrontational
definitely do
at all.
not.
That's like,
No,
I
you do
avoid that
not.
at all costs. But tell us, so this idea of resentment, and asking yourself these questions, doing this inventory, what are some other questions we should be asking ourselves, like in terms of codependency or boundaries?
Okay. So first of all, let's I'll finish the behaviors because this is where people are going to really see themselves. So being overly self-sacrificing, like we are literally always willing to take one for the team.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, it's fine. I'm good. Don't worry.
Are you
Like,
pointing
no,
at me?
Yes, that is me.
yeah.
That's
That is 100% me.
Because again, we want peace. And we're like, I don't even
Yes.
care. I
I don't
care
care.
more about peace. So imagine, remember when people used to actually go to work? Oh, I guess you guys still go to work, but
Yeah.
most of
I
those
still
people
go to
just
work.
stay in their house.
Stay at home.
But if you and your partner were both going to work and they left first and the car they usually drive had a flat tire, you would immediately go, take the other one, I'll Uber. Like, there's not even, we're not even skipping a beat. It's like when you're a high functioning codependent, you're on the line for 12 or less. Someone gets in line with you with two things behind you. You're talking to your friend and you just wave them ahead. You only have two. Go ahead. Like, we are so always thinking about other people. And again, some people will say to me when I talk about this online, they're like, maybe I'm just nice, Terri. Ever think of that? Like, maybe, but here's the thing. If you can't not do it, it's not niceness. It's a compulsion, just like any other compulsion, which is why I talk about this as getting into recovery, as opposed to like curing it, because there is no cure. Just like, I stopped drinking when I was 21, right? Do I want to drink right now? I mean, maybe not right now, but yeah, I still have a desire to drink sometimes. The only difference is I don't. And this is the same thing. You'll still have a desire to tell your adult child what they should be doing with their money or their 401k or whatever it is that you want to tell them, but you won't. And so maybe you will eventually. But what if we're looking at the auto advice giving, let's just look at that and what we can do instead, and then I'll finish the behaviors. But with auto advice giving, because that's one of the biggest behaviors, and it's one of the most isolating things to do in your relationships, because it actually cuts off intimacy. It actually blocks intimacy, because so what we're going to do instead of auto advice giving, we're going to, no matter who comes to you with a problem, I mean, at work, it's different depending on what your job is, but in life, someone comes and says, maybe it's even a kid, and says, I had a terrible day. I had a fight with Bobby today at school. Instead of you being like, we don't fight in this family, you stop and you go, okay, tell me what happened. And then you say to the 7-year-old, the 10-year-old, the 15-year-old, the 25-year-old, now tell me, what do you think you should do? Mm-hmm. And then stop talking.
Yeah.
And just allow. And if they go, I don't know, you go, okay, but if you did know, we're just spitballing. Just what are your thoughts? Like, the same way that we work so hard to have the right, quote unquote, answers for others, we could be that supportive of the people in our lives coming up with their own answers, because those are the only answers that are going to stick, than us sort of being so directive. And again, with children and even grown children, I'm not saying that we're never going to tell them what we think about something. But I'm saying, if you want to have a good relationship where you actually know this evolving person, it can't be the first stop on the bus. The first stop on the bus has to be, what do you think you should do? Because the subtext of that is, I trust you. I believe you have good decision-making. And even if they don't have good decision-making skills, how are they ever going to fucking grow them if you constantly are going in and being like, this is actually what you should do? What we're saying to kids, grown or not, when we are constantly inserting ourselves as the answer to every problem. I am the all-knowing oracle of all the problems that you have, even though we think we're doing it lovingly, because obviously, listen, you teach what you most need to learn, people. So I'm not judging anybody, because I wrote a whole freaking book on it because I was such a bad HFC. But really, what are we saying to them? The subtext is, I think you're a loser. I definitely don't think you got this. I don't think you can do this. And I don't think you can tolerate failing. So I'm going to save you.
Yeah. Interesting.
They're not yours to save. And even with children, right? If you think about that part of The Prophet, there's that book, The Prophet, which came out in 1928, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a poem in there on parenting. And it's so beautiful. Oh my God, I can't even read it without bawling my eyes out because it's so gorgeous. But part of it is saying, parents, we are the bows, and our job is to let them, the children are the arrows, let them go far, because you can't be where they're going to be, even in your dreams, right? Because we're going to die before them. Like, you want to teach them critical thinking skills, all the things that they need to survive in life. And when we infantilize them by making them dependent on us, and by being like, making them not even know how to make a decision because they're like, I got to check with my mother, I got to check with my father, I got to whoever, you're not doing anybody a service. And again, people listening, don't feel bad. I felt bad for a long time. Listen, we weren't doing it on purpose. I really did think it was being the most loving. Then, you learn, as Maya Angelou would say, you learn, something. You learn better and you do better, whatever she said,
Yeah.
All right,
Know better
two
and do
more
better, yeah.
behaviors, and then we can move into what people can do.
Okay.
Anticipatory planning is another behavior. You know you're going to be with that difficult person. You're doing Christmas at your house or Hanukkah at your house. You've got Uncle Jimmy and Uncle Bobby coming, and they hate each other. Nobody wants to, they're not going to sit near each other. Make sure you have the right booze for them. Make all the machinations, all of the twisting ourselves up in a pretzel and lighting ourselves on fire so other people can be warm, as opposed to having a conversation with two grown adults. If you two can't get your shit together, don't come to the holiday event. Get it together. Stay away from each other on your own. I'm not a referee. Don't ruin it for me. But instead, we never think of them. What? Put it on someone else? Nah, I got it. We are the queens of what are the mantras? I got it. It has to be me. Right? Why does it have to be us? Because we're more efficient than most people. Because someone's going to do it, but they're going to do a crappy job, and we're going to feel compelled to redo it.
Yep.
Like, we know. We know all the things.
That's me. Mm-hmm.
I love it.
We're seeing ourselves in a lot of
There's
these,
a lot
Terri.
of what you're saying. I mean, truth be told, we're kind of opposite and the same at the same time, I think, you and I.
Well, we're going to let her decide.
Okay.
Continue.
Another one of the behaviors that I write about in the book is auto-accommodating, where we find ourselves, for me, I just told the story of being in my hair salon on a very busy Saturday, and I'm laying in the sink with a mask on my hair, so I'm going to be there for 30 minutes. And now the sink traffic starts to back up. One person in a little robe, two people in little robes, three people in little robes. Each person that gets added to that list, I'm stressing, where I'm like, why are they letting me? Why am I taking up a sink? I don't even need a sink. I got to get out of here. Raise my hand. The assistant comes over, and I was like, I could sit somewhere else. And she's like, yeah, dude, we do this every Saturday. I think we got it covered. You're fine, But why?
That's great.
You guys understand, right?
Yes.
Like, why did I think me, Terri
Yes.
Cole, I've got your sink flow figured out. Here's a chart.
I just walked in. I have it all figured out.
Yeah. And what could I have been doing? Like, why do we care, right? What could I have been doing instead of having an anxiety attack about something that is not my side of the street at all?
Mm-hmm.
I could have called my mom. I could have listened to your podcast. I could have done a lot of things. I could have rested my exhausted brain. Because here's the thing, if there wasn't a cost to all of these behaviors, I wouldn't have written an entire book about it. And we all deserve so much more than what this set of behaviors provides for us. There's two things that I think are the biggest costs. One, there's a glass ceiling of our own making, right? Because if we are bleeding this amount of bandwidth, thinking about other people, figuring out other things, there's only so successful you'll be business-wise, but also personally, right? Because we have finite energy as human beings. You just cannot bleed this amount for this long, for this many years or decades, and not have it cost something. And it does, because you can't be focused 100% on how you feel, what you want, what you need, and 100% on what other people want, think, need, feel, right? And as HFCs, we're really way more focused on other people. And the other big cost is nobody knows you, right? Like in the end of the end, you have like a stadium of data in your mind about every person in your life. We know everything. We know their likes and dislikes, who's allergic to gluten, who just doesn't like gluten, who doesn't drink, who drinks, who's doing keto, who's whatever. We know it. We keep up on it. We know who doesn't like small talk. We know who likes what kind of music, who drinks what kind of booze, what kind of alcohol, who doesn't do sweets, who's off sugar. We got it. We don't expect the same consideration from others because we're like, it's not a big, whatever, like, don't even worry about it. If you are an HFC, think about it. How often do the people in your life go, I think I'm going to call Lori. I feel like I want to check in on Lori, see if Lori's okay. Literally nobody's doing that.
Mhm.
Nobody's being like, I hope Terri is okay. They're like, obviously she's okay. Hello. She's like running the world. Like she's
Right.
fine.
She takes
She's the
care
one
of
we all go
everyone
to.
else.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Mhm.
right.
That is correct.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But there's so much self-abandonment in these behaviors. And the satisfaction of having quote unquote peace is it's at the cost of your own inner peace. So as Cheryl Richardson would say, not saying anything to keep the peace starts a war within you, which is the truth. So what do we do? Or what questions do you have? Or where do you want to go from here?
Yeah, I mean that's it's so interesting. Like all those things you're putting that makes so much sense
Yes.
when you really when you break it down like that. But I think for people who are HFCs, they don't even know they're doing it, right? Like you just it's this
Yeah.
it's an automatic response
Yeah.
that's been ingrained in you for however long, and you're just that's just how you function in the world, you know. Um, so what? Okay, so how do you start to change some of these behaviors?
Okay. First of all, understand that like nothing's monumentally wrong with you. Like, so don't start to, anybody listening or you guys, don't feel bad about yourself. Listen, we were all raised to be good girls. We were literally raised and praised to be self-abandoning codependents. That's how we were raised. They're like, turn that frown around.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, as women,
Right.
Yeah.
If you don't have anything nice to say, buddy, don't say anything at all.
Right.
Like I could keep going. So we know, and it's worse for women to a degree, because there are definitely men who are HFCs, no doubt. My husband, an extreme, because I couldn't be with someone who wasn't more efficient than me, thank God. And then, so it's either most HFCs either end up with someone who's HFCer, or you end up with a real overfunctioning and underfunctioning dynamic in your relationships. So if we think about what that looks like, I say this as like a joke, but it's actually true, that in my 20s, I could take a perfectly capable boyfriend and turn them into an underfunctioner in 2 weeks or less. You know what I mean?
That's a skill.
Yes. Wow.
Yes. Where
Wow.
you're just like, I got it. And the person's like, well, okay, I guess. And I remember when I first met my husband, I was talking to my mother and I was like, I don't get this guy. Like, he lives in Jersey. He wants to come and scoop me up on the Upper West Side and then drive me all the way back to Jersey, even though I'm going to be there for the weekend and I could just take the train. It takes 30 minutes. Like, so to me, I was like, this is not even efficient. Like, I don't get it. And she was like, hello. And she finally said, Tara, why are you stopping him? He wants to come scoop you up. That's the sweetest thing in the world. Let him get scooped up. Like, what is your problem? And I realized like, it's not all about efficiency, but that's sort of the way I'm always thinking about what is the best way to do something or what is the most efficient way to do something. And that didn't make sense in the allowing of other people adding to our lives, because when you're hyper independent as an HFC, we are a lot rejecting other people's help. Whether it's me just telling the cab driver, I'm going to Europe for God knows how long, I've got a huge ass bag. He's like, let me help you with your bag. I'm like, I got it. Why? Why am I not letting the bagger at the grocery store bag my groceries? Like, what is wrong? But I can't even do that like back in the day, you know? So
Oh God, this is me.
That is so
This
you.
is me
She's
100%.
describing you like
I'm like-
100%. You
I'm
never
like,
want help.
have we
You
met?
always. I was like, I just hit her so hard under this table when you said. I was like, this. She is talking about you.
The whole efficiency thing.
The whole
but-
efficiency,
but
yeah.
Continue.
Go on.
I feel you. All right. So let's talk before we get into the fixes, which we certainly will. I want people to really get why do we care? Burnout is a major thing that happens for HFCs. You just eventually hit a wall. So we go from too many F's for too many people for too long. Too many. We care about all the people. We're doing for all the people. And then the pendulum whips this way. And sometimes it's a crisis, a health crisis, a relationship crisis, something, you lose your job, the things that made you feel like you, whatever. You end up swinging to the other side and now you're pissed. And no F's for anybody, right? That's brief. That doesn't usually last. But know that when you get in the healthy middle, which you will eventually, if you walk down this path with me, you will give just the right amount of F's for the right amount of people. And it doesn't mean it's on you. Like when you really understand that this is not on you, all of this responsibility that we have taken on, that we have self-diagnosed as ours, isn't. I'm going to tell you a quick story before we get into the fixes of how I basically came to this in my 20s. One of my sisters, I'm the youngest of 4 sisters, and one of my sisters she had a history of like bad relationships and addiction. And so she was an active alcoholic living with a guy who was doing crack in a shack in the woods, no running water and no electricity. And he was abusive. This is in upstate New York. So that's an HFC nightmare, right? Even though my life is over here, sort of humming away. I just started my therapy practice. I just fell in love with my husband. I just became a bonus mom to 3 teenage sons. I'm busy, but no, I'm singularly focused on getting Jenna out of her domestic hellscape. So I go to my therapist for like the 5th week in a row, bawling my eyes out, being like, what am I going to do? And I had done everything. Money, I'm going to get a lawyer. I'm sending books, all the things. You know exactly what I did. So I started crying and I was like, Bev, what am I going to do? I've done everything. And she just very compassionately, but straight up said to my face, Terri, what makes you think you know what Jenna needs to learn in this lifetime and how she needs to learn it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know. I think we can agree it doesn't have to be in a fucking shack in the woods with a piece of shit who's abusing her. And she said, truthfully, though, I can't agree because I'm not God. And I don't know. And that was the first time in my life that I grasped and never entered my mind there was another choice than to just, as HFCs, we're loyal to a fault. It doesn't matter. Stay too long, stay in relationships too long a lot of times. So I just thought, well, I'm just going to try to get her out of there till I succeed. What else is the right move? Isn't that what a loyal, loving sister would do? And she said, Tara, I said, well, what do I do? And she said, listen, you need boundaries. And I was like, what the hell is that? Like, that was the beginning of boundaries being a total mystery. I was like, what? And she said, you don't have to talk to her about this guy. You don't have to listen to her telling you, like, recounting all of this abusive shit. You really don't. And you can still be there for her if she wants to get out. So I have that very difficult conversation with my sister. I love you. I can't talk about this. If and when you want to leave, I'm always your person. So we talked maybe twice in 9 months. And then she called and said, are you still my person? And I was like, I'm putting on my sneakers now. Jumped out the door, picked her up. And what happened was, and the importance of the story is it wasn't my situation to manage. And me, having her baby sister be the hero of her story is not exactly great for self-esteem. What happened was she got into recovery, went back to school, that was decades ago. She'd never been in another abusive relationship. And she got to be the hero of her own life story.
Yeah. Wow.
All the respect.
Yeah.
I get to respect her and be like, you're amazing.
Yeah.
if it was the other way around, and it probably wouldn't even have stuck.
Yeah.
And my
Yeah.
therapist said, listen, Tara, I'm not saying you shouldn't save your sister. I'm saying you can't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that really changed my life and made me realize that this whole, I mean, it took, of course, decades of being a therapist for me to, package it this way. But that's what it was. I didn't know there was another choice. My only choice was to keep doing that. And I think that for a lot of HFCs, we're really doing the best that we can. And we really think we're doing the best for the people that we love. And yet, when you realize that there's another way to do it, it's such a relief.
Yeah. And it sounds like, you empowered her to do that, to come to you. You gave her that room and that space and gave her that sense of empowerment. Like, okay, I know my sister is there for me, whether it was
Yeah.
conscious or unconscious, and I think
Yes.
that's huge, and I think that's a big lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's, I'm just like recalling things in my life
I
where,
know.
I could have done that. And,
Right. I mean,
yeah.
look, I think about, I stayed married too long to my now ex-husband, but you do think like, oh, I could fix it. I'll do whatever I can. I'm going to stay in it. I made a vow. I made a commitment. I need to do things to make him happy. And I was only burying myself. It's like, it wasn't until, he moved out that I was like, I could breathe. I felt like I could breathe. And it wasn't, but you're right. I needed to get to that point. It was very difficult to get there. And also, like, I wasn't seeking help from anyone.
Mm.
I was literally on my
Well,
own.
you weren't telling
Yep.
I
anyone
wasn't
either.
telling
You
anyone.
weren't sharing it with
Sure.
anyone.
No.
And
And
do you
because
know
I didn't,
why, though, Laura?
I mean, I'll make a guess. I know how I was feeling. I was feeling ashamed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And because as HFCs, we can figure out anything.
Anything. Yes.
So the things we
Yes.
can't figure out about ourselves, things that we feel like should be a given, things that it's so hard to like look at them or to share them. And I think we have to give ourselves permission to be human. And if we're looking at what can people do to get to this more expansive other side, because that's what being in recovery from being a high functioning codependent feels so good, because you are gaining so much bandwidth and you are loving your people in a real way. Because when you think about the real flex when it comes to love, it's being with someone during the dark night of their soul and saying, I'm not going to fix you. I love you enough to tolerate how incredibly excruciating this is for me to see you be in pain. But I'm here if you want to talk, if you don't want to talk. So that's what, to me, that's what, when people talk about holding space, like in this self-help community, I'm all like, that's actually what holding space is saying, I will accept you where you are with your messy situation. And I won't try to clean it up and give you stupid advice you're not going to take to make myself feel better, because that's what we're doing. Like when we really look at it, and all right, maybe the advice is great advice, but the bottom line is it is sort of making the other person's thing pathological or making it our problem to fix. So when we start to accept people where they are, people are not projects. We are not dehumanizing them. And there's so much more expansion for us in the relationship when you start just asking those expansive questions, right? Now you start to know people. What a relief. Because think about how anxiety or how constricting it can feel when someone has a problem. Your best friend calls you. If you're wondering, you're listening to this by now, you know if you're an HFC, but let's just say you're still on the fence. If your best friend calls you and she's in crisis, I want to know exactly how long it takes before that crisis is literally your crisis to fix. How long? How long? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? You're an HFC. Like,
Yeah.
immediately, I have now canceled
Yeah.
all plans. I am now only doing this thing for my best friend.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we need to have better boundaries, right? Meaning, it's funny. In my first book, I wrote about Boundary Boss. I wrote a lot about how we can establish boundaries and uphold boundaries. In this book, I write more about, in Too Much, I write more about how we cannot be boundary tramplers. Like we are inadvertently the boundary bullies by just deciding we're going to boss everyone around and tell everyone what they should be doing. We need to surrender, right? Just surrender to what is. In my situation with my sister, surrendering would have looked like This is where she is right now.
Yeah.
It sucks. I'm scared. And she's a sovereign human being.
Mm-hmm.
She has the right to be self-determined. And when you think about it, all of us have the right to succeed and fail, to thrive and flail. But if you're an HFC, we don't want anybody flailing in our vicinity. We do not like flailing. And yet it's something that when we can tolerate it more, people are less afraid to come to us. They feel less judged by us. If you really think about how do the people in our lives feel? Because I've got these archetypes I'm going to be releasing. I don't have it out yet, but I'm releasing another quiz. And this is there's 6 archetypes for HFCs because they're all different. So you guys are like, we're both HFCs, but we're different.
Yeah.
Some are
Yeah,
more,
yeah.
right, the director, where you're more overtly bossy. That is if somebody like hurts your feelings, you're more likely to like cut them off or not respond to their text for like 6 weeks just to let them know that you're pissed, but you're not going to say anything about why you're pissed. Then you have other people who are more like hyper helpers that are in like they're nurses and they're where they just can't stop. They're just endlessly helping people in their life all the time. So anyway, I feel like there's nuances in how this affliction affects people because you might be an extrovert, you might be an introvert. But if you're feeling burnt out, if you're kind of exhausted, if you're feeling a bit underappreciated in your relationships, if you just feel like your life is one long ass to-do list, I will venture to say you are probably suffering from high functioning codependency. And we need to be able to disappoint other people. There has to be, because if we don't, then we just disappoint ourselves. You know what I mean?
I just have a comment. So your book and this conversation is changing my entire perception of codependency in terms. So like, I used to think of codependency, and maybe this was, from like a psychological standpoint, was someone who was very dependent on the other person for everything in their lives. So it has this definition changed over the years, or am I
Yeah.
just thinking of it in the wrong way?
Well, I think that the definition, like if you think about what the definition was before, it almost always involved an addict. And we were, according to Melody Beatty, with the original definition, it's loving someone more than you love yourself. It's being obsessed with controlling another person. So that was Codependent No More for the 70s. And this high functioning codependency, this book, is codependency for the modern woman.
Okay.
Because think
That
about
makes
what
sense.
happened in the 70s, right? Late 60s, early 70s was the beginning of women being able to be anything besides a teacher, a nurse, or a secretary.
Right. Exactly
We
right.
could only think about
Exactly
it. We
right.
couldn't get a business loan by ourselves
Yeah.
until 1986.
Yeah.
Like these younger
Crazy.
women coming up, I feel like they don't get it. They feel like
They
this is
don't get it.
always how it's been.
They don't
They
get
And
it.
you're
don't
like,
get
no,
it.
man, they don't. I will agree with that. So we didn't want those rights to be taken away from us. And so I feel like how the whole superwoman thing was born was that we were like, but don't worry, babe, I'll still do everything at home. Just don't take away my right to be an engineer, a producer, a therapist, a pop singer, whatever it is, And then that evolves into this super inequity in the emotional labor, in what's happening in the home, especially those of it depends, right? Because age-wise, I turned 60 last March. So age-wise, I feel like women who were in their 50s and 60s were even more influenced by the old school definition of what we should do, and it took years of therapy for me to be like, no, thanks. I'm not interested in that. But I feel like hopefully this younger generation is getting less of that guilt. But to me, it makes sense that we felt like if we did it all, we could keep having good careers, which is what we really
Yes.
wanted to do,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's-
Look, I see that in my office all the time. Like I see my friends who have kids and older parents and struggling to find the balance for themselves, their husband, their kids. They're in that, sweet spot of really giving to everybody else. It's like a bad,
Sweet,
right?
Yeah.
quote unquote, sweet spot.
Sweet spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's hard to watch, them go through that.
And they feel compelled to do it all. I think
they
that
have to.
also,
and they feel like there isn't
an option.
There isn't an option or enough people to lean on in the sharing.
Here's the thing, though. We don't have to. And I'm going to tell you a quick story about a woman I just was interviewed by yesterday who said, your book on boundaries changed my life. And she said, I just read too much. I love it. And it made me decide so she and her husband usually go back east. They live in California for Thanksgiving. And she just hit the wall that I described before. And she just said to him, hey, babe, I can't. Even though they already had a hotel booked, they already had airfare. She's like, I'm literally not going. He's like, well, if you're not going, I'm not going. And she was like, I love you and I want you to go. You're not invited to me and the couch. It's just me and the couch for a week. I'm ordering pizza for a week straight and not doing a fucking thing. Mm-hmm. And she was like, when he came home, I said, was he mad? She said, no. He was amazing. She's like, he's great. He just wants me to be happy. He's like, will that make you happy? Great, do it. She said, he came home. I was so renewed. I was rejuvenated because I let myself off the hook from all this obligatory crap that I didn't feel like doing. I didn't want to travel. I didn't feel great. So what I'm saying is that what I walk you through in this book is ways to expand your mind and ways to enroll the people in your life to sort of deal with the fact that things are changing. Now, we don't need to grab a bullhorn. We're not like telling everyone there's a new boundary sheriff in town. We don't need to do that. But people are going to notice, right? We're suddenly unwilling. Her husband's going to notice that she's not going to Thanksgiving. Right? Yeah. He's going to notice. And this opens up real conversation. This opens up real dialogue. I also have something for your audience, you guys, because I know that we talked about a lot. I feel like I talked a lot. And I want people to feel like, they know where they can start. So I have an HFC toolkit. It's totally free. Just go to terricole.com/HFC.
Okay.
And it's just a good place for you guys to start.
Okay. That's perfect.
Great.
Terri, do you think it's hard for certain people to set those boundaries because of like the guilty feelings or obligation, or doesn't feel good for them because they're not used to doing that? I mean, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking like, how do you have those conversations and how do you get to a place where you feel comfortable to set that boundary?
Well, here's the thing. We're not looking to be comfortable, Jen, because we're not going to be. So it's okay. How do we tolerate being uncomfortable? And the more you do it, the easier it gets. It's just like anything else. Think about anything you learned to do that in the beginning. You were like, this is hell. And then it gets better. So we're not, because people will be like, how do I set a boundary and not have any conflict ever? I'm like, I have no idea. And if you figure that out, please let me know.
That's funny.
I don't think we can, right?
Yeah.
So it's just changing the expectation.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can just make a request. Jen, you can literally make a request. So if you want to change something, language can be, hey, I'd like to make a simple request that you let me know if you're going to be more than 10 minutes late.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm never late. You're always late. I'm never late.
And if you're an HFC, your idea of late is if you're not early, you're late. But
that's my idea. If you're not early, you're late. Absolutely.
I know you, Jen.
You know what? It's funny is that we came into this conversation with you and I thought I was going to get really thrown under the bus because I feel like a lot of my behavior, especially with Jen, I would say, feels codependent, an old school codependency, and that I feel like kind of vindicated from this conversation because I feel like a lot of the things, a little bit, because I feel like a lot of the things you are equally guilty of different things.
I am.
You are. And it's just very interesting to me. Well, we took your quiz, right? Is that
let's quickly tell.
Yes.
Let's quickly tell Terri.
Yes.
And then we'll let you go because we there's a lot of good information in this.
I agree.
I don't want to take away from that.
Okay,
so we'll go with Lori first.
I took the quiz and I was categorized by my answers as being a pushover.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do you want to go through that or do you want to just say what you are?
All right, well, let's just see. And I came out as the powerhouse.
Of course. That quiz is so inaccurate. I'm sorry. That is so accurate. I would have guessed. I literally would have guessed.
We should have made you guess. I regret that.
Yes.
Oh,
I
wow.
regret that. I regret
So,
that.
okay. And so I guess like, so let's just talk really quickly about like some of those characteristics and what makes, how we interact with each other, or are we
Yes.
compatible? Are we not compatible? Like how do those two types work together?
Well, here's the thing. Most HFCs travel in packs. So it makes sense to me that you guys would represent it in different ways, you know? And of course, you can get along. You have to be, I think it's helpful to be sensitive to like read each other's results and look at the results video, because I did a video for each one. And you guys listening,
we did not do that. Yeah.
yes, watch the video that I made for each one of them. That'll be helpful. And you guys listening on the terricole.com/HFC, where I give you the toolkit, there's also a link for you to take the boundary quiz. So you guys can get your boundary type, because boundaries and codependency are very much together. So the last thing I'll say about this for you guys is that once you've listened to each other's results, take the time to become more sensitive too. If Jen feels threatened or is upset or is mad, she's likely to withdraw. If Lori feels threatened, is upset or is mad, she's likely to acquiesce, to sort of just give in, to say like, it's fine, it's okay. So know that, because to have a better or a healthiest relationship, we want to be able to talk freely. And I think that you guys should do a weekly or bi-monthly, could be every other week, thing that I call the State of the Union, where you meet, have a cup of tea, and just be like, how we doing? So what has been great? You know, it was amazing. You picked up the slack for me. You did this thing. That was great. So we always start with wins. Like, what do we do that we appreciate each other? And then what could we have done better? We were in that interview and you said this and I didn't like that, or whatever. Let's normalize having the harder conversations, because the more you can do it in your friendship and the more that you can do it wherever, the healthier you're going to be in all of your relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's great advice.
That is great advice. I think sometimes we do that.
We do. We don't do it in such a formal way.
No, but I think we are. I don't know. Maybe you're going to disagree with what I'm about to say. You might, but I think we are good about airing our grievances.
Oh yeah,
you know,
I think
feel
so.
like we, you know what my grievances are. They're not a secret. You know.
Yeah, that's true. But you're right, Terry. Like I tend to withdraw or just get quiet when.
Yeah, I know exactly when something's bothering her, because she really does go radio silent.
Energetically, you can tell.
Yeah.
So now we're just going to put words on that.
On that.
All right.
Which I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And I do give in most all the time.
You do.
I do.
I'll admit it. Yeah, you do. I tend to have strong opinions about things. And, you know, back to your comment about efficiency, that's all I'm always thinking about is
the only thing she
why
thinks
would
about.
we do it that way? That's so inefficient.
Yep.
Yeah.
Why would you have to,
Yes.
always.
Yes.
Yep.
And
I give in because, like you said in the very beginning, I don't want to fight, and I just want to keep the peace. And I think in the end, she cares about whatever we're doing much more than I do. So I give in.
But you don't mind giving in, do you?
Of course she does. Jen, hello.
Look, I have to say, I stand my ground. When I know that it's important to me, I definitely stand my ground.
You do.
You know?
You do.
Okay, you got it.
Yeah.
You guys, this was so much fun. I want to say thank you. Thank you for having me.
So much. We love this conversation. We love the book.
The book, again, is Too Much, A Guide to Breaking the Cycle of High-Functioning Codependency by Terri Cole, who's our guest today. Thank you so much for all your advice and wise words. Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. See ya.
Great.
Okay, you powerhouse.
That was so
That was
interesting.
amazing. That was.
Didn't you learn so much?
I think I did. I mean, it's nice to. I don't know. I don't think validated is the right word, but to know that you do these things, you know.
Well, to
I feel like
recognize
to
it,
recognize those things is
and
important.
I think if it gets to a point where you feel burnt out, like she was saying, then to employ these
Yeah.
strategies for creating boundaries and all of that so that you're not exhausting yourself, you know?
Right. I mean, it's funny because in giving in to you a lot of the time, I don't feel resentful about it.
Right. Well, that's
I
what
think
I was
that's the
kind of feeling
difference.
when she was saying that, like
You know?
some of the things that she described that I do, I'm like, I don't know. I'm doing it because I want to. But I guess her point is that becomes
Right. That's the
a habit.
behavior.
That's
You're
the
not
pattern.
just nice. You're doing it because it's fulfilling
it
something.
fulfills
in
something
you.
in me. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I
I am nice too, but yeah.
eh. I think I'm nice also, but who knows? Maybe I'm not. Maybe we're both really mean in the
Maybe.
end.
Just
I don't think so.
bitches. No.
Bitches. I don't think so, but I think that, I don't know, maybe the two kind of go hands in hand. I mean, I don't think it's all bad.
Well, I think to her point of like, there's nuances to this, you
Yeah.
know? So like there's, you know, she's high functioning codependents travel in packs.
we definitely do.
Yeah, which is funny. And so like, I think that like, had we gotten into, and the book gets into this, more of sort of like the specific types of, because like within that high functioning codependency, there's different variations
Right.
of it, you know? So yeah, that the book is great.
The book is great. It's very easy
and I
to
definitely
read
encourage people to
and
take that quiz.
take the quiz because it is very enlightening because you're like, I don't do that. And then the person sitting next to you is like, yes, you do.
Yeah, exactly. Or
Yes,
you
you
think
do.
that you're one way and then you get your results and you're like, oh no, that actually resonates more
Right.
with me than
Exactly
what I
right.
thought I was. Or what you know, I think what you think you are is very optimistic. It's like you see yourself through
Yes.
rose-colored glasses.
Oh my God, when you were talking about the efficiency, I mean, I hit you. I was like, she is
That's me.
describing you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
I
don't know how I can undo that because
I don't think you can because I think I check in with you because I know if we're working on something and I don't feel like I need you to feel like we were efficient and productive. Otherwise, you're going to walk away
and I'm
annoyed.
yeah.
Yeah. You don't like it. So I do check in with you at the end
Yeah,
of our
no.
day and I say, okay, how was that? How are you doing? How are we doing?
Yeah. Did you
We
get
do
enough
do that,
done?
actually.
Yeah. But I don't think I actually think that my efficiency obsession is good. I don't think it's bad. I don't think that who doesn't want to be more
Efficient.
efficient?
Who doesn't want to be more like me? That's essentially what you're saying. Who doesn't want to be me? Everyone.
But I don't know. And I guess going back to other experts that we've spoken to and talking about being
very
present
similar.
and living in the
Yeah.
present. And
Yeah.
I don't always remember that because I'm always thinking about how
Yes.
can I do it better
You
the
are
next time?
very anticipatory.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. I also. Yeah. I mean.
all right. Well, that's enough about my downfall. My
I really went in and I was frightened. I was like, oh, here we go. We're going to say how codependent I am and I bug you all the time. And
yeah.
that's not really the crux of
maybe
what
we'll
this
bring
was.
somebody else on to talk about that because I thought we'd maybe get a little bit more advice for you. Versus,
I know. And setting boundaries. You like a boundary.
I like
and
a
I do
boundary,
not.
and you have none.
I have none.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
We're
I have
working
none.
on that though.
I try to respect
You're a little
yours.
better.
I'm much better. Jen, I am much better.
You are much better.
I
You are much
mean-
better. I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well.
All right.
Anyway.
Well, hope you got as much out of that one as we did. We certainly did. I'm Lori Schulweiss.
And I'm Jen Giamo.
And this was Everybody Talks.
Talk to you next time.
Take care.
For more information about our podcast, to learn more about us, and to catch up on all of our episodes, go to our website at everybodytalkspodcast.com.
Follow us on Instagram at Shuli, at Jen Giamo, and at Everybody Talks. And if you want to watch today's episode, go to our YouTube channel at Everybody Talks Podcast.
Join the Everybody Talks community by checking out our Patreon page, where you can become an exclusive member of our wellness group and be a part of the conversation.
And don't forget, if you like what you've heard, give us a 5-star rating, write a review, and tell a friend. We're for everybody and everybody. The Everybody Talks podcast is co-created, executive produced, and hosted by us, Lori Schulweiss and Jen Giamo. Produced and edited by Station 16.
Our theme song music is written and performed by Jackie Ryle and Aaron Navisi, with additional support from our pups, Oliver, Milo, and Murray.
Talk to you next time.